Hey guys, what's going on? I'm John Malecki, and in this video, I'm going to show you how I built this Adirondack chair with a Paracord seat. Check it out. So this build starts out like most by breaking down the rough lumber. I'm using 2x4 cedar from my local home store since this piece will be outside. And I rough cut the dimensions of the miter saw, and then I square everything on the joiner, planer, and table saw before cutting down the final dimensions. I assemble all the wider planks that I need for this build using Titebond 3. It's because it is a water resistant glue. Once the glue up's out of the clamps, it's back to the joiner and planer to square everything to final dimensions. I then lay out the angles for the leg joint on a piece of scrap plywood that is already dimensioned to the overall height and width of what I want the legs to be. I then cut these on the miter saw. I then lay out the location for some dominoes, which is how I join the legs together, and I will cut the top and bottom angles after the glue up. No worries, I didn't forget, I just like to use my track saw for that part. Because of the awkward angles, I lay them flat and use wedges to glue them up on my work table. I then move on to the armrests, where I cut everything out before I glue up to avoid using any awkward angles on the bandsaw after it's dried. I cut the arm angles first and then the backrest. To find the arch on the backrest, I use 2 screws and a thin piece of cutoff to draw it. You'll see this is a pretty nifty trick you can use anytime you want to draw an arch. I then use 10x50mm dominoes, and I use the cutoffs to clamp the arms together. Once the legs are dry, I cut the top and bottom angles using my track saw, and I make these cuts all at the same time. I then trace them out and repeat the cuts on all the other legs. I move on to the parts for the seat pan, where I lay everything out first, all of the holes and the curves for the front and the back of each pan. Using a 1/4 inch Forstner bit and the fence to slide along, I cut all the holes on the drill press. I then clean up all the waste using my drill bit and a rasp. Then it's moving on to the bandsaw to cut the curves in the front and back of each seat pan part. Using my miter gauge, I cut lap joints on the table saw so that the paracord has something to clear once it's rounded over the top of the outside of the seat pan, and it's mounted flush on the inside of the leg. This will make more sense once we get to that step.
So now that we've got these slots all cut and smoothed out, kind of, I'm gonna round over all of the edges, and then I'm gonna start putting them together and making the seat pans. This should be interesting. I've never woven anything, nor do I know how I'm gonna be tying this off, but let's get to it.
I hand sand everything down and then assemble the pans with countersunk stainless steel screws and glue. To weave the seats, I measure out 24 lengths of the seat width and then wrap them tightly in 12 consecutive loops. I tie them off with a double half hitch knot, and I am not comfortable teaching you that, so you can Google it if you want to learn. and I repeat this for all 7 of the front to back seat straps. Little tip, once you cut your paracord, you're going to want to singe it in order to keep it from coming apart. I then alternate over and under on the straps that go from side to side, and I also alternate the pattern from front to back, that way it gives a nice visual aesthetic. I tie those off with double hitch knots as well. Note, each seat took me about 2 hours to weave and about 600 feet of paracord each. I measure up about 11 inches to where the seat's a nice comfortable lounge height, and I fasten them into the legs. Here you can see why we cut the lap joints earlier to allow that clearance for the paracord. I then mark this angle for the back bottom stretcher, and I cut it on the table saw to just give a little bit of a better visual aesthetic. I move on to the back slats, which are cut from the same 2x4 stock. They're jointed and resawed, but you can cut these from 3/4 inch stock if that's what your home store has available. I then lay out all the slats in the order I want and draw a curve across the top. I cut that on the bandsaw.
All right, so check it out. Ran into a little snag here. Wasn't really loving the shape of this chair. I put the first one together, as you can see it here, and I just really wasn't digging the back or the way it was shaping to the seat. So what I ended up doing was messing around with it a bit, made a few adjustments. I'm gonna go back and fix those on the second chair and show you guys what those are.
I first increase the angle on the curve for the back, and I think this gives a better look, and then I widen the back slat curve as well.
So I'll mark the center of this board here, and then I will find the center of the back slat. I will mount these first, and I'll use a 3/4 inch spacer between them, and then I'll set it in the seat.
I go ahead and mount all of the back slats onto the bottom curve using the same stainless screws, and I only use one in the center so that way they can splay out. I mount them from the side with more countersunk stainless steel screws. I adjust the backrest angle using my jigsaw, and then I sand it all smooth. Using the arms for reference, I countersink all of the screw heads for the back slats, and then I repeat the same process for all the screws that will mount the arms into the legs. I go ahead and attach the center back slat, and then I adjust the rest of the fan by eye. I cut a random curve at a length that I like, and then I trace it onto both arms. And while I'm sanding, I want to take a quick second to thank Timberland Pro for sponsoring this build. Timberland Pro has been my choice for workwear and footwear for years, and I have to say, I couldn't be happier with that partnership. They have a wide selection of boots and workwear for both men and women, and they are some of the highest quality products on the market, which is something that is hugely important to me. If you want to see more from Timberland Pro, you can check out the link in the description, as well as check out all the gear from them that I rock on a daily basis. After sanding the whole chair to 150 grit, I apply a satin SPAR urethane, and man does it really make that cedar pop. I apply 3 coats and I sand in between to knock down all the fibers and get a nice build on the finish. And after that, this piece is all wrapped up.
So this build was a lot of fun. As you can see, this chair came out pretty awesome. The seat's super comfortable. I got all the materials at the home store, and you can order Paracord online or all over the place. So basically anybody can make one of these. It was a lot of trial and error, but I'm pretty sure I got it down. I want to send a big thank you out to Timberland Pro again for sponsoring this build and supporting my channel. If you guys want to see more about this specific build, make sure you're checking out the link in the description below, as well as links to all the affiliates I work with. That's how I support my channel, and if you guys support them, you help support me. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you on the next build.